everyone. Welcome to The Edge of It All. I'm your host, Trey Edge, and I look forward to going on this journey with you. Each episode, I'll talk to guests of all walks of life, and I'll ask them the behind-the-scenes truths we all want to know. I'll reach out to newsmakers, celebrities, athletes, and ordinary individuals who were there during some of the biggest events of our time. Together, we will hear the story behind the story. So let's get started. This is The Edge of It All. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of The Edge of It All. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to our podcast today. On whatever podcast stream you have chosen, we appreciate you choosing The Edge of It All. Do not forget our home studio, that's UBN Go International Network, UBN Go International Network. To say our guest today brings an alternate point of view is an understatement. It'll make sense in a minute, we promise you. She is the author of Hidden Memories, Discover What's Blocking You from Life and Love. It has a 5-star rating on Amazon. She has shared her story all over the world, and she is with us today on The Edge of It All to share her story with us. Please welcome Melissa Osorio to the show. Melissa, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I started looking into the story, digging when we agreed to do this thing, and you graciously agreed to come onto the podcast. And sometimes you just read a story and you just go, wow. I mean, what an incredible story. What an incredible journey you've been on. We're going to get into the details of that. But first of all, sometimes you step back and just look at this thing and go, yeah, I've written a book here, but just this life story is incredible.
Yeah, actually, I have a few times. I have taken a step back and, wow, being in awe of the process, but being in awe of the occurrences that I didn't remember until too long ago. So, yes, I've done that.
It is an incredible story, and I cannot wait to share it with our audience. You were born in Venezuela, moved to the United States. By a lot of people's measure, it's, that quote, picture frame existence. You've got affluent, a successful father, beautiful mother, 4 siblings. In telling this story, doesn't it also speak to everyone that, the surface, there's always something beneath that?
Yeah, exactly. So families have secrets, and some secrets are worse than others. And what really defines those families and the members in it is how long those secrets stay hidden and how they're processed or not processed within the family. So in my case, I did have a picture-perfect family, but there were a lot of secrets lurking beneath the surface for sure.
And you can, again, the book Hidden Memories, you can go learn all the details of that. But it's interesting. I mean, you had no memories of what, about 13 years of childhood? Is that right?
Correct. So for most of my life, I actually had very few childhood memories, just little snippets of information like, maybe I went to this place or that place, but mostly were just things that I saw in family photos. And because my family wasn't really versed in mental health, and it's not something that's very commonly known, like the reason why a person will not have childhood memories, we just never looked into it. We just took it for granted, like, oh, that's strange, but okay.
And trauma can cause that?
Absolutely. So it's not always that it's a definite thing. Now, if you don't have childhood memories, you have something traumatic in your childhood, but it's very often that is the case. So trauma the brain number one objective is survival. So when you have things in your childhood, especially when you're unable to process them, they're overwhelming, then the brain will actually hide these from your conscious awareness so you can continue on living. It completely blocks the memory from your conscious awareness.
So much of this, again, we start sharing this story, but how much of this has been almost scientific, and learning to study the brain and learn things like that. That also has to be a part of this that you just didn't anticipate you'd be doing.
Oh, absolutely. I love science. I major in chemistry. So when these memories started to come up, I knew they were real but I didn't understand how that was possible because I had taken psychology classes in school. I consider myself an educated woman, a well-traveled woman, so I should know things like this. And I was shocked when I started to find different books and started to learn about how common this is. I mean, the first cases that were even spoken about these were by Sigmund Freud. So he actually went and talked about the brain hiding trauma, and then because of reasons that I mentioned in my book, he completely changed course and went in a different direction, unfortunately.
I read where you said this, and this is you speaking. I reached a point that I completely spiraled and had no purpose or will to live. I would look at my hand and try to count 5 people that I really loved and couldn't do it. Can you describe, if you can, what that moment is like when you get to that point, that realization that I've got to do something here?
Yeah, so my entire life I was unable to be happy, even when I had the reasons to be happy. And I just had this persistent feeling of disconnection from myself, from people. But I just took it as part of my identity, like we all do. Like sometimes we're just so accustomed to being a certain way that we just don't even question our behaviors. But life, because of a variety of reasons, continued to spiral down during 2020, 2021. And I did get to a point where I was over drinking every day for 2 years. I was completely isolated. And I was just wondering if I even wanted to be alive. And I remember just looking at my hand, and as I mentioned there, and just trying to understand me. And I was even questioning if I loved my mother because I couldn't tell. I didn't know how love felt. I didn't know how experiences felt that were meant to, like, that were people felt all the time. Like when people say to each other, I love you, I thought, like, that sounds so strange. Like I was unable to say these things.
That's amazing. I mean, and even now to be able to acknowledge that, because as you say, people may have that feeling, but not be able to express it. It's one thing to say, okay, I love you, but to say what you just said, to say out loud, that doesn't make sense to me, or it doesn't feel right, whatever. I mean, that in itself is a realization, isn't it? And something that must have been somewhat startling to you.
Yeah, it was startling, but the reality is, and again, it's our identity that we've grown up with. Like it's similar if someone can say it, but they don't really feel it, right? Because in our current medical model, the question that the doctors or our family members or the community ask when we show these behaviors is, what's wrong with you? Get it together. Yeah. But in my book, I mentioned that there is a much better question that actually was brought up by Oprah Winfrey in her book that says, what happened to you? Every behavior that we display as adults has a root cause. It can be a childhood experience, or it can be something that we get generationally from our parents, but there is always a root.
To try and start this process of helping yourself, you went, and we'll just flip the words here, you went to self-help seminars.
I did.
Now, we're not trying to label an entire industry. Let's just say that up front. We're just talking about one specific case. But did they help you? Or was it a way for you to actually find the path that you would ultimately need to get on?
Both. So they did help me to the level that I was able to consciously be helped. The question arises is, how do you heal a wound you don't know you have? It's really difficult. So I was going blind into these seminars. I was reading books without having the complete information of what happened in my childhood, the unremembered trauma. So the seminars were definitely helpful. They were the first step that got me to where I needed to go. And to be honest, it happened in the right order. That was like the baby food. I started to question some of my behaviors. I started to think about my emotions as patterns, like why do I display these patterns of behaviors, which is one of the main things I invite the reader to do in the book. And it's one of the main reasons why I wrote it. It's not to push any particular treatment or any particular route or avenue, but really if the person can just start questioning their behaviors, their emotions, why they act a certain way. And that is awareness is the beginning of change.
Love that. Let's get to, and again, this is Melissa Osorio, author of the book Hidden Memories, joining us here on the edge of it all. The use of psychedelics. You know, you do this self-help thing and you, I don't want to say stumble into, but you ultimately are in this place in your life where psychedelics become part of your healing story. If you don't mind telling our audience how that came to be, even your first reactions to it, the idea that was being floated that maybe this is an answer for you.
Yeah, so the first time I heard about psychedelics was in the seminars that I attended. People were talking about it. But to be honest, I grew up in a very religious family. Mm-hmm. So anything that was extraordinary or difficult to explain, it was deemed demonic or just bad for us. So I had a lot of religious conditioning surrounding psychedelics, which it was lack of understanding of what they really are and their uses, right? But I got to a point that I was desperate enough that I trusted my friends' opinions and went to this particular center in Costa Rica where people went to heal their hearts. I felt heartbroken, so I thought that was a good place to start. And even when I got there, I felt like my feet were ready to run. I was so terrified of this unknown. Sure. However, I was desperate enough to give it a try.
When you gave it a try, can you describe what that was like? And I'm not really talking about the physical feeling. I'm talking about the emotional part. Was there a moment where you almost felt like a light had flipped on for you?
Yes, actually. I remember clearly that very specific moment. It was during my first treatment. I had been drinking this particular plant medicine for a while, and I was not feeling anything. So I was reinforcing my I'm broken kind of like inner feeling that I used to have all the time. And I stood outside by the fire, and a helper came, and she just encouraged me to relax, to connect with myself. And I remember I was looking at the fire, and all of a sudden, I really felt energy travel really fast through my spine, like each vertebrae moved really fast. And in that moment, I breathed, like I took a deep breath. And it wasn't me breathing. It felt like my soul took the very first breath in my entire life. It's like I had a plastic bag over my head, and I was able to remove it and take that deep breath that gave me hope. It made me a believer in the extraordinary.
Was that moment overwhelming? I mean, was it emotional for you? I mean, there had to be something there that I don't even know that it's easy to put into words, but it had to be just a feeling of, I don't know, was it freeing for you?
It was hope.
Yeah.
It was hope of change. I felt that I wasn't broken after all, that this could help me. I really felt it could help me. I felt connected to my heart in that instant. And I didn't know what was coming. I was completely unaware of what was coming, but I knew it was going to be something that will change my life.
When you tell this story and you get to this point, and you talk about your experience and when that light came on, and you just talked about your soul is what you thought you were feeling there. How much of it is with the audience you're talking to a convincing? You know what I mean? Like people are hearing this story and, I'm sure there's a part where people just go, oh, come on, you're kidding me here.
Yeah.
How tough is that?
So I fully identify because I used to be me. I used to be the skeptic.
Good point.
I used to be the woman that was like listening to my friends thinking, these crazy hippies, like what are they talking about, these psychedelics, But again, it's just being open to be informed and educated on what's out there. In my particular case, it worked for me. Even though I was not really a believer, but I was at least open to try something that I knew had helped other people and that I knew could be helpful for me. And the beauty of it is that even though it's a substance that you're drinking, what it's doing scientifically is really connecting your brain waves differently. Is your neurons are firing differently. So scientifically, these substances, one of the things they do is they lower your fear center in your brain, your amygdala, amygdala, and then they increase the connection between your rational brain and your memory center. So it's all here. It's just helping it work better, faster. And the incredible part of it is that every part of your body and mind remembers. And, when you're doing alternative treatments, it's an accelerated path. It's not for everyone, but if it's something that you're doing and it's helping you, your whole body gets this aha moment when you have these understandings, when you're able to process anything from your childhood, any experience from your adult life, a divorce, a family member's death, all of these things.
Your book, Hidden Memories, again, we've mentioned it's got a 5-star rating on Amazon. It dives into the complexities of trauma and its impact on our lives. What was the most challenging part for you of revisiting and recounting your own traumatic experiences?
Well, it's really difficult when you suffer trauma and you deal with the consequences of it throughout your life. It's a different kind of difficult when it takes you by surprise, when your brain did such an amazing job at protecting you that you actually have no clue. And I think this is something that's important for people to understand, because some people think, I vaguely remember what happened to me, or I've heard the brain hides trauma. But the understanding is not there to really realize that the brain is a master at hiding trauma. So your brain might be hiding experiences that you will never think of. But the key is that your subconscious never forgets. Your body never forgets. So it is said that not only the way you act with your children or with your relationships or with your coworkers can really be rooted in humiliating episodes or neglectful or abuse that you suffer during childhood, but your body, it is said that many of the illnesses that we are facing now, like autoimmune diseases, cancers, they're just, cells that are not functioning correctly, and trauma does that to your body. And unremembered trauma does it even worse. It's just like your body's spending so much energy at keeping you safe and hiding this trauma that is always occupied in that.
So, fair to say, trauma, we know it can affect mental health, but what you just described, it can affect more.
Oh, absolutely.
It could be physical health, I guess.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. When I started to heal my trauma, I call it like I organized my mind. My body organized on its own. I didn't make many changes. I did get off the alcohol and change my relationship with that, but I didn't make many other changes. In fact, I worked out less because I was so focused on what I was doing. And I feel like a layer of fat just came off my body naturally. And it's not just me. I have talked to many other people that have also healed their trauma and have experienced the same thing in their body, and they have done it without psychedelics. So it's not one avenue is the only one, but sure. As long as, like, the current medical model splits you right here: brain, mental health, and body. And we're one unit. So what's going on here is affecting here, and what's going on here is affecting here. So it's about taking care of everything as a unit. That's how we get healthier. That's a holistic approach.
Was there ever a moment where you second-guessed yourself? I mean, you're using something that, at least to that point, seemed a far-out remedy to the mental health issue. Did you? I know what you got to the point where obviously it was doing something for you, and you felt like it was going to be in a positive way. Did you ever find yourself second-guessing what you were doing?
One of the most horrible instance of my life is when an image flashed in front of my eyes during my third treatment. And I had seen that image before during my adult life, but in that moment, my brain remembered, but it couldn't process it. Every cell of my body carried the weight of remembrance in that instant. In that moment, I knew the entire story, even though my brain was still struggling to be able to process it. So during that time, it took me about 2 hours of very intense suffering, to be honest. And I went really fast through the 5 stages of grief, right? Where you're angry and then you're denying it and then you're bargaining like maybe it happened, but it didn't. Maybe like, you're in that stage and then you're in depression. And finally you get to acceptance. When I got to acceptance, I was able to start recovering my memories. And in the book, I really describe it in detail because I wanted the reader to really use this experience as a mirror to them, right? The book tells my story, but it's more than that. It's a guide for the reader to be able to, question their own memories, their own lives. So I went really fast to those 5 stages. And then, of course, healing and growing is a spiral. It's not a straight line up. So we come back to the same things. So yeah, there were times during my healing journey where I went through those 5 stages again. I was angry and then I denied it. How is this even possible? And then I bargained with myself and then I cried and was depressed and then I accepted it again. And it's a process, right? It's a process until I experienced a beautiful treatment where I was able to connect with my inner child, with that part that all of us carry inside, that little boy or that little girl that experienced whatever we went through in our childhood that honestly works as the little captain of our lives as adults. Yeah. Like that little child is the captain of our lives. If we're not aware, they might be steering us in the wrong direction, right? So at that point, when I was able to really meet my inner girl, experience in myself what she experienced and feel her feelings, then I didn't need to go through the 5 stages of grief anymore. I had already a full acceptance.
It's incredible. It popped in my head as you were describing that. Sometimes we watch TV shows, TV series, and I'm not talking about, science shows or where people are talking about what you and I are talking about. I'm talking about like dramas, creative events that people have put on TV. And it's funny, I'm having these flashbacks to different episodes of shows where I think they've tried to illustrate someone going through that process, that psychedelic moment where they're seeing these visions of these different things in their life. And what's interesting to me is what you just described, I think is exactly what people have been trying to illustrate for so long. And being able to say it in 5 stages of grief in that one moment, perhaps is the most clear way, maybe? Is that fair?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to go through?
Yes. And everybody each stage is different for everybody. And everybody owes to themselves to do their healing at their own pace. But whenever you have to process grief or something, the faster you get to acceptance, the quicker you can start healing and processing. So yeah, you will see these stages repeated and sometimes you come back to the same and you go back and forth. But once you get to the last one, then the healing journey can start. Acceptance is not the end of the healing journey. I wish that was the case. Then you're simply accepting the effects that it had on you and you're able to start processing it, which is, in the book, I make sure that I lay out my experiences very clearly and very authentically and in a vulnerable way so people can identify with them, because there is so much stigma surrounding mental health. There is so much stigma surrounding alternative treatments that one of my goals is to be able to provide this book as a beacon of hope, as an educational tool, as a guide, as a mirror for people to really look back on their lives and see if, I say in some cases the book will be an alarm bell for people that need to wake up into an often more complex reality of their lives.
What advice would you give to someone who is thinking of trying unconventional therapies?
I will definitely say unconventional therapies are not for everybody. So educate yourself. Don't go blindly. Don't just try this because your friends are doing it, or you travel down to Mexico and someone down the road offer you some ayahuasca. That's not the way to do it. It's not to be taken lightly. This is such an important point that inside the book, in the middle, there are 6 chapters where I take a pause from the narrative and I just educate people about how the science behind how the brain hides trauma, how psychedelics help, what dangers are there with psychedelics, what are the things to keep in mind, and if you start getting, memories, hidden memories come up, what questions to ask to yourself to make sure that they're real. So it's just education. It's always, never going blindly to any of these places, for sure.
And get the book. That'll help. Hidden Memories. Again, Melissa Osorio with us on the edge of it all. You just mentioned how psychedelics can be dangerous. How can they? Well,
several ways. There is 2 very important things: set and setting. Set is your mindset. How is your mind when you go into a psychedelic treatment? Are you psychotic? Are you on prescription medications? Are you just doing it because your husband or your wife wants you to do it? The reasons why you're doing it and your expectations, right? The mind is very powerful. So that is one side of it. The other side that is incredibly important is setting. So that involves where you do it with and who you do it with. So if you go to a place where it's an unsafe setting, then there are many dangers. There are physical dangers. If you didn't get your medically proved that you can take these substances, there is physical dangers. There is emotional dangers. If there is no support and something really terrible comes up, then you have no support. You don't know how to process it. And then there's energetic dangers. There is a lot of energy that gets released and transferred in these type of treatments. And if you're not in a place that is, it's a safe place, it's a professional place, then you can end up with your energy just feeling really out of it or picking up other people's energies. And it's not where you want to be. So always set and setting, why you're doing it, who you're doing it with, super important.
Mental health, those 2 words. It has become such a focus, such an important issue of our time, really. In some ways, is it destiny that you're doing this? I mean, it's not, it is your journey and you're telling it, but you're speaking to so many people at a time where I'm not sure mental health has ever been as focused on, and it's still not enough. I think we can all agree on that. But I don't know, do you feel that way? That this was just destined for this to be your path?
I have felt that way, especially as the readers read the book or listen to it in Audible, which I narrate, by the way. You will kind of see a life path that is almost like I've been writing this book my entire life. With the different occurrences and the drama and the twists and turns. It's really a riveting tale. But more than that, more than my story, it is the timing, is what you mentioned, is to be able to turn adversity into something that's valuable for others at this time when it's so needed. It's an incredible gift for me, but more importantly, the real gift is to be able to put this book in the hands of a reader, and then when they have contacted me and told me how impactful it has been for them, and they're sharing it, and it's, that is where the real value of it is. And I want to mention something really beautiful that goes along with that. I've discovered with the writing of my book that all it takes is for one person to be courageous, one person to be authentic, one person to talk about their struggles. And then everybody around you starts talking about theirs too. It's a ripple effect. And that's how we clean society of these trauma cycles. That's how we help the world as a whole, is by being vulnerable and being first at something and doing it with passion and with the right motives. And then everybody around starts doing the same. And that's beautiful.
A beautiful message. Does writing the book and helping other people in turn help you?
Oh, 100%. So it's not often that a person sits down and recount their lives. And more than my life, I actually realized I needed to go to my parents' lives and their parents' lives, which we often don't do. But the reality is that we were raised thanks to how, in great influence by how our parents were raised and their grandparents.
Absolutely.
So to be able to recount that and to be able to, for writing the book, I had to open the wounds, but more than that, I actually had to dissect them because I wanted to extract what I felt will be helpful for the reader. So in this dissection, I really healed a lot. And then to be able to put it out in the hands of people this book is the first thing I've ever done in my life that is completely selfless. In that case, it's like my entire life, I was very business oriented. I always wanted to see how I could maximize a connection, what they can do for me. And this book has been one of those things where it's out there for people to read it because I believe there is a message there that can change many people's lives. And it's the kind of book I wish I could have read when I was 20 years old. Sure. So that has been a gift.
What's amazing about that, about what you just said, you said it's the first thing you've ever done that's completely selfless. However, it is still helping yourself.
Yeah, but that was a side effect I didn't plan on.
Right.
Yeah, that happened without my knowledge. I realized, I was like, wow, I'm healing. That's amazing.
The FDA recently issued I think they call it a draft guidance on psychedelic drugs. And it kind of reflects a perspective that is shifting on their potential therapeutic use. How do you see the future of psychedelic therapy and kind of its integration into mainstream mental health care?
Oh, it's going to happen sooner than people realize it. People are tired of prescription medicines. They're tired of seeing their loved ones' lives being destroyed. They're tired of veterans suffering from mental health and not getting any help. So people are looking. People are tired of alcohol. They're just tired of numbing themselves. So what's happening is like this kind of like movement where people are starting to get more and more interested, more educated in what other ways are out there that can help mental health. Veterans, for example, are the number one group in the U.S. right now that is in trials for mental health with psychedelics, and it has been giving incredible results. Now, I do mention in the book, and it's slightly controversial, and it's something for people to reflect on. So many of these psychedelics are deemed Schedule I controlled substance. Mm-hmm. By definition, a Schedule I controlled substance is a substance that has no known medical use. Now, reconciling the fact that these substances have been now for a long time been proven to help with control groups, and that classification not being lifted in a timely manner, it makes one wonder what's going on. So, I say one must wonder if the red tape that is keeping these psychedelics from being legalized, for being accessible to people in therapeutic settings, in psychiatrist's office, if the red tape is being purchased by industries that will be hurt the most, like alcohol industries, tobacco industries, prescription drugs industries. I mean, one can but wonder, but the reality is that people will not be misled as they have been, without realizing of the benefits. So in my opinion, it's following a very similar route to cannabis, to legalization, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
It's funny. I was going to ask you why it is so scary to the industry, to the medical industry. I think you just answered it. Well, I think you just stumbled right into it because, number one, it's got to be, quote, controlled, and we know what that means. Mm-hmm. And there's always dollar signs attached, and we know what that means. So you called it red tape. But, I mean, what more passionate case can you make than citing our veterans? I mean, seriously.
Exactly. And with veterans,
can you not open your mind to that?
You know, I have a whole chapter where I talk about veterans in the book because it's a compounding effect. It's not only what they went through in war, but we all go through stuff in our childhood. So you have them and you're compounding. And then they come home and their mental health is not getting the help they need. So they're raising their children, in many cases, without the capacity to help them be the best adults that they can be. So it's a domino effect that keeps on going. But I tell you what this domino effect means for many industries: more money. Yeah, so if you don't cut this cycle, if you don't stop a domino at some point, only certain industries are going to continue to get rich. And that's the problem. I mean, imagine you get some of these psychedelics, you get some mushroom spores, you can actually grow this psilocybin in your house. The pharmaceutical industry is out, of this microdosing of, for example, of substances. Once people is educated on all of these, now you're not needing to numb your pain with alcohol or cigarettes because you're healing your mental health. What is alcohol? What are cigarettes? What are addictions? They're desperate ways that our nervous system attempts to self-regulate. That's all it is. It's not, it's not the habit. It's like, what are you trying to self-regulate? Your body is trying to keep you alive. And alcoholism is one of the ways that your body can self-regulate from being in a state of emergency to kind of like being calmer. So it's just cutting those red tapes so people can be educated and make a choice. Again, it's not for everybody. But rarely something is for everybody.
Sure.
There is place in everything for medical models. There is place for some prescription medication. But what we're saying is we want to be able to have the choice of a more natural approach.
How can society better support people dealing with trauma and mental health issues?
Well, start by reading my book.
I love it. Answer number one.
The book, and the book will give you guidelines on how to deal with trauma, how to understand trauma, but it will also educate you on psychedelics and mental health. And it ends in a beautiful note about what will the world be like if we were able to integrate traditional medicine, with scientific research, with psychedelics, with talking therapy. So what we can do is educate ourselves. Start by reading Hidden Memories. That will give you a lot of education. I cite a lot of many incredible authors in the book, so you can also expand your reading list and just become more aware. In the news, it's coming up a lot about psychedelics. There's a lot of training about it. So just get informed on the topic.
Finally, you've traveled, and I mean, you have traveled over 87 countries, I believe it is.
Correct, yes.
How has that shaped your understanding of mental health and recovery?
Well, cultures are very different, but the human race is very similar. So our experiences in childhood are different as our fingerprints. However, the way our human brains process them are very similar. So across the world, if a child in Japan is getting neglected by a parent who's overworked and a child in America is getting neglected by a parent who's overworked, guess what? They're going to be having the same type of consequences as an adult. They're going to feel abandonment issues. Their attachment style is going to be avoidant. So the world is very small and it's very large at the same time. But when we really see everybody around us as a human with a lot of compassion and understanding, regardless of their culture, we see their actions as a reflection of maybe what they went through, rather than judging, cultural differences right off the bat, but, thinking, wow, this person is acting different than me. I wonder, what happened in their childhood, or what have they gone through in their lives that has made them act this way. And that applies for any culture.
Yeah. Final message from you to anyone listening today, be it to medical professionals or people you're trying to help, message about mental health. Melissa Osorio's message regarding recovery, whether it's about psychedelics or however someone's going to do that, but dealing with trauma and mental health.
Yeah, I will say trauma only feels as a death sentence if it goes unhealed, if it goes unremembered. It's never too late to be able to transmute experiences into something beautiful that can have an effect in your life, but also in the lives of those around you and in their loved ones and around them, and a ripple effect in humanity, in the world. It starts with one person, and that person is you.
And also you.
Yes.
Where do you want people to follow you? Where do you want people to go get your book? Tell us all about everything we can find out about Melissa and the book.
Perfect. So, Hidden Memories, Discover What's Blocking You from Life and Love by Melissa. You can find it on Amazon. It's Kindle, it's paperback. In the next week or so, it's going to be on the hardcover in my website as well. And it's in Audible, which people have told me has been their favorite version.
Yeah.
I really put a lot of heart into making it really authentic and vulnerable. And also, I have my Instagram. I've been posting a lot of informative posts about psychedelics, about mental health, and it's Melissa_Osorio_remembers.
Awesome. Well, listen, like we said at the beginning, what an incredible journey. You know, a tale of trauma and pain to one of recovery and hope. And that's the message I take from it. I hope that's the message everyone will take from it. And we really appreciate you coming on, sharing the story. Wish you the best of luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
And everything else as you continue to spread the word about, this journey and how to make life better for everybody. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. That'll wrap up this episode of The Edge of It All. Be sure to listen to us on UBN Go International Network or wherever you go to get your favorite podcast. You can find The Edge of It All across all podcast streams as well as social media. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Thanks again to Melissa Osorio for sharing her story. Please go get her book, Hidden Memories. Learn a lot. We've learned a lot today. You can learn a lot more by reading the book. It addresses one of the most important issues of our time, and that is mental health. We appreciate everyone listening to The Edge of It All today, where you will get the story behind the story. Each episode, a new one, where you will hear something you have never heard before. Talk to you soon, everybody.